Hello, bore da, prynawn da, noswaith, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome back to week 2 of the Olwen shawl Olwen. We are finished the first section where you have developed your increase and decrease and started the shaping for the shawl. So you end up with this slightly curved triangular shape with a nice edge on one side and then a fairly standard edge on the other side. And this week you are going to start to incorporate the symbols of our tail and to use purl stitch in order to start creating more pattern in your design. So the purl stitch will allow you to do stockinette stitch, which will be part of the stripe section of the pattern, and the purl stitch will also allow you to do seed stitch, which hopefully you can see down here. Yep, seed stitch, which is a purl stitch over top of a knit stitch and vice versa. So the rows alternate in order to give you a nice textured feeling, and it will be the same on both sides. Okay, just alternating. So this is really nice. This and moss stitch are one of my favorite stitches. I often get them confused. The only difference is that seed stitch is 1 purl, 1 knit, whereas moss stitch tends to be 2 purls, 2 knits, just a bit chunkier. But seed stitch, lovely. And then stockinette, and you have brought it up with garter. So just a review of your stitches. Garter, stockinette, seed stitch is where we're going. Okay, so there's not too many tips. If you're knitting and purling and you're good at knitting and purling, then you should be fine getting on with this section and introducing the stripes and the different colors. We recommend you use the yellow or a gold color for the start of this striping, just because that's really integral to the ideas of the tail, the yellow and the gold being linked into Olwen. Okay, so I have made, because this is a little bit difficult on a larger scale to demonstrate to you, I've just made a little tiny sample of the same section. Okay, so on the little sample that I've got, in order to explain this section to you, you can see that I've got my main color working in the pinky red color, and then I've got my first contrast color, CC1, coming across. This is the yellow or gold color, which is really nice to go in line with the theme and the tail of Olwen. And that is in stockinette stitch. The main color stripes are in garter stitch, and then you've got your seed stitch over here, creating a triangle and a nice diagonal line to contrast with the stripes going along the other direction. The important part for this pattern is where it connects, the two colors connect. So this section of the pattern, it's all about trying to make that yarn change and keep it from creating little holes. Not only will you carry on with your increases and decreases on each row, but you'll be doing that color change in the middle, and then at times you'll be carrying that yellow color across in purl stitch in order to create the stockinette, and other times you'll be bringing that main color across in knit stitches to create the garter stripe. Okay, so let's do a row and see if we can just get through some of those details. So we'll cast on here, focus you in to my fingers. There we go. Okay, so as usual at the beginning of the row, you're going to do your knit 1, knit front back to do your increase. Yes, there we go, to do the increase. And you're going to knit along in your main color, much like you have been doing in the first section. As you knit along, your rows are going to be a little bit longer than my sample. You are going to approach the yellow or CC1, contrast color 1 section. As you do that, you're going to be asked to stop either 1 or 2 stitches in advance, and this is going to maintain your diagonal. Okay, so I've stopped 1 stitch in advance. I want to start doing seed stitch now. So I know that I'm going to start with a purl here, and I need to bring my yellow yarn from the back forward, but I don't just want to do that. If I just do that with my main color over here, I'm going to end up with a hole when I come back. So before I bring my yarn forward, I'm going to make sure that it wraps around or crosses over the red yarn so that it's going to catch it. Can you see it catching there? And then I'm going to bring my yellow yarn forward to do the purl. And then a knit. So you can see I'm moving my yarn back and forth now to do the seed stitch pattern. So when I'm doing a knit, I'm going to the back. When I'm doing a purl, I'm coming to the front. Knit, move the yarn to the back. Purl, move the yarn to the front. Okay, so there will be movement back and forth to get your seed stitch. I apologize, but I do often put my thumb on to steady the purl stitch. Okay, now this part, I'm just going to take it back one stitch, is where I want to actually do my decrease. So I'm on a knit stitch and I'm going to knit two together. This is the third row of my set of 4. So do the decrease and then knit. Okay, so that's essentially a row. You've come across in the main color knitting, then you've swapped just one stitch before and then carried on in seed stitch pattern, but you've crossed over those yarns at the back. And as we come back down this row, you can see from the back that I've dropped my main color there. It's still in the middle of the row, and I've got my yellow color here ready to knit back. So if I just go along and do that, this is where you might also get flummoxed a little bit, because here you've got your knit two together and a knit at the end, so it looks like a double knit. Make sure that you follow the pattern or look 3 stitches ahead to know that that's the knit stitch. So I need to start with a purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit to maintain the seed stitch pattern. Okay, so bringing my yarn, purl, knit, purl, and you can see I'm just going to move my yarn back and forward and just pick up the pace a bit, do the seed stitch section just so I can get to that intersection. So nice textured seed stitch. Purl there, knit, purl, knit, purl, and this one I want to go 1 over, so I'm going to knit, and this time around my yellow is on the wrong side again, so I'm going to bring that back and hold it. As I do that, I want to bring my main color over top of that. So again, I'm crossing the main color over the contrast color and then putting it to the back. That's going to help me tighten it and prevent a hole appearing. This doesn't happen when you bring the yellow stripe across, because when you bring the yellow stripe across, you're simply purling the rest of the row, so you're not going to get a hole. But it will happen when you rejoin the main color after you've done a yellow stripe. So you just need to keep an eye on it and make sure that you are crossing your yarns over so that when they connect, they are actually twisting together a little bit as they cross to avoid you getting a hole on the other side of your knitting. Okay, So then when I turn that around, you're going to see that I've got that, what looks like a bit of hole, but when you come back and you pull that yellow together, and next time around, you're going to see it pulls those stitches together, and just keep it a little bit tight so that it doesn't venture into a little gap. Okay, and on the back, again, just to remind you, you're going to have these floats. So you'll have the yellow floats coming up on the red rows, and then in between the red sections with the yellow stripe, you're going to have a slightly larger red float coming up there. Don't be afraid to pull it just a little bit tighter to make sure that it seals the space in between. And you'll have a series of floats just going along the diagonal line. They should be nicely concealed and fairly easy knitted in. And then you don't have to attach and unattach yarns. You're just floating them up and down. So with that in mind, you should be able to carry on. When you get to those stripes, as I say, just purl. The one thing you need to other thing you need to look out for is that there is technically 4 knit rows on that stripe, just for 2 yellows, and that's just to make your yellow stripe stand out a little bit more. So you're knitting along, purling back, knitting along, and then that first main color row is a purl row, not a knit row, so that it balances out the opposite side. And then you knit along those garter rows up there, seed stitch on this far side over here. Okay, so good luck. Any questions, let us know. If you have any feedback for us, get in touch via email, and I hope to see that you are all progressing, and you should have some really nice dynamic seed stitch sections with lovely stripes alternating between your stockinette and your garter stitch. We will be on to week 3 in no time, and I look forward to seeing you then. Bye. Hwyl.